subjects that we plan to talk about with the President of Indonesia, President Joko Widodo. Lahat ng issues that we expected to be raised with us, hindi naman issue, but the subjects that we expected to be raised, we did. Pero nalampasan namin yung plano. We started talking about other things. The main subject was to be trade, to continue our long-standing relationship. But I think the most extensive subject matter was in fact PPP, because nandito talaga tayo para i-encourage yung PPPs with the Philippine government. Maganda nito, Jakarta, Indonesia, long-standing par 73 years na tayong mag-partner ng Indonesia. So meron talagang tayong mga fondasyon na maganda na we can build on to develop all of this.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time. I'm Cito Beltran.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. The big story tonight.
The Philippine Peso further weakened today as it closed at a new all-time low of 57 pesos.
One economist says the price of consumer goods may continue to increase if the local currency continues to weaken. Gerard de la Peña with the story.
The local unit hits a new all-time low against the US dollar for the third straight trading day. On Tuesday, the peso closed at 57 pesos. This is a new record low from the 56.999 versus the greenback posted on Monday. This is also the first time that the peso sank to that level in a dataset that dates back to 2001. The reason for this weaker peso was reportedly due to the rebound of world economy's confidence in the dollar after announcing new adjustments to their interest rates. One economist says the price of consumer goods may continue to increase if the local currency continues to weaken.
Halos 12% na yung depreciation ng peso against the dollar. Kaya, ibig sabihin yan, magmula nagsimula yung taon na to, halos 12% ayun yung idadagdag mo sa presyo ng mga imported. So, bukod pa doon sa behavior ng presyo nila.
Think tank Ibon Foundation echoes this sentiment, saying economic managers in the country should find a way to address the rising inflation.
Kumbaga yung parang dali ang pakinabang na, lumaki yung palit sa dolyar, medyo nababawi siya ng inflation, tapos yung uncertainty kung magtutuloy-tuloy ba yung kakayanan dun sa paglikha ng trabaho sa ibang bansa.
Despite this, businesses in the country remain confident that the weaker peso is not much of a concern. Speaking on Radio 5, ECO President Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr. pointed out that remittances of OFWs will be of big help to the country.
Multiply mo yung 12 billion sa family of 4 or 5. Majority ng Pilipino yung umaasa sa dolyar. Wala pa rin yung mga exporter, wala pa rin yung mga tourism.
Economists, meanwhile, are saying that the decreasing value of the peso is no longer avoidable. BPI lead economist Jun Neri attributed this to the increasing interest rates in the US as they continue to battle inflation in the country.
Mukhang nahihirapan silang pababayin ng inflation doon, kaya kinakailangan itaas ang interest sa Amerika.
The Philippine peso, however, is not the only currency seeing a decline. The same situation can be seen in other Asian currencies, though the peso could be seen as one of the worst performers in the region. Still, experts are saying that the local currency will eventually recover in the final quarter of the year. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
Meanwhile, inflation slightly eased to 6.3% in August, but the PSA admits it remains unsure if inflation has already peaked. Shaila Francisco with a report.
Inflation slowed down in August for the first time in 6 months. The Philippine Statistics Authority said it settled at 6.3%, slightly down from 6.4% in July. This is due to lower gasoline and diesel prices and slower price hike in meat-efficient vegetables. Despite this, consumers in Metro Manila still find commodity prices too expensive. The region's inflation accelerated to 5.7% amid price hikes in restaurant, house rentals, and and education services. The PSA admits that it's still not clear whether inflation has already peaked.
Kung tataas naman yung transport ulit, so posibleng mag-shift yung ating direction. This September, for example, there are news about raising jeepney fares, so that would also contribute to this month's inflation.
The pressure is now on the central bank to impose measures to control inflation. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas said it is prepared to take further policy action to bring inflation back to government target. The BSP has been on a rate hike spree in a bid to ease inflation. The NEDA meanwhile assured continuous provision of subsidies to ease inflationary pressures. Shaila Francisco, WR1 News.
Here to share his insights on the weaker peso and the latest inflation figures, we have with us on the show economist Emmanuel Leco. He is joining us live via Zoom. Good evening and welcome to The Big Story, Professor.
Good evening, Cito, and good evening, Gretchen. Thanks for having me tonight.
I'm sure you've seen what we've run regarding the peso rate and inflation. What are your reactions regarding peso to the dollar exchange of 57 pesos to 1?
57 pesos to 1 was a psychological barrier or a psychological level, and it seems that it's like if you hit 57, anything can go next. So probably it can be 57.05 tomorrow, 57.25, because we haven't seen the end of the movement of the US dollar. The interest rates in the US continues to go up, or inflation continues to be uncontrolled, and therefore the US continues to consider raising interest rates. And if that happens, the Philippine peso will continue to depreciate.
Professor, how alarmed should we be with this all-time low in history or the data set until 2001? And do you agree with the lead economist of BPI, June Neri, saying that the BSP should act quickly to arrest the decline of the peso?
57 to $1 is disturbing. However, when we continue to say that we will defend the peso, it only invites more reaction from currency traders. So what does that mean? The Philippine Central Bank will release more dollars into the market, but then our dollar reserve is not unlimited. So the more the Bangko Sentral intervenes, the more speculation there will be. So I think we have to be very, very careful about what Bangko Sentral can do in the currency market. I think we can go back to our experience in the 1990s, in the late 1990s, when speculation about currency movements fueled more speculations rather than control it. So what can the BSP do? Can they release more dollars? Our dollar reserve is already being watched at $100 billion. It will be so easy to wipe it out if we continue to participate in the currency market actively.
Professor, who, in your opinion, is going to be hurt the most in the country?
The ordinary people will definitely feel the pain of depreciating peso. Why? Because we are almost importing everything, consumer goods, onions, garlic, fish. We import petroleum, and without price movements in the petroleum market, with the currency depreciation, the price of oil or the price of petroleum in the pump stations will definitely go up. So consumers will definitely feel that.
Well, they are saying that the policy rate should be increased yet again to be able to arrest inflation. What are your thoughts on that? And also, how high do you think this is going to go, the peso to the dollar exchange rate in the months to come leading up to December Christmas season?
It will be very difficult to compare the Philippine intervention or options to the U.S. The U.S., in their attempt to control inflation, they're really going all out with the interest rate. However, in the Philippines, if we go all out with our interest rate, this is going to hurt a lot of companies who are borrowing, consumers who are borrowing, because the interest rates are going up, and they may not be able to handle rising interest rates in our household or in the companies who are actively tapping the credit market.
Okay, we'll have to leave it at that for now. Professor Leco, thank you very much for your time and for joining us this evening.
Meanwhile, we have some breaking news. The Foreign Affairs Department has requested Indonesia to pardon Mary Jane Veloso. In a statement released just minutes ago, the DFA said Secretary Enrique Manalo has asked his Indonesian counterpart, Retno Marsudi, to grant Veloso executive clemency. The request was made last September 4 on the sidelines of the state visit of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Stay tuned here on One News for the latest on this developing story. Now, after the break, we'll get updates about President Marcos' state visit to Singapore. Keep it here on One News.
$11, my favorite mayo $2.13, bread $1.34, and these chips just 91 cents. Yes, the Japanese yen is weak. Falling to 140 yen per $1 US, we haven't seen it reach this level since 1998, when they were calling it a once-in-a-generation yen volatility. And a lot of it has to do with the rising interest rates in the US. As the Fed raises rates to address inflation, the Bank of Japan has a totally different game plan. It wants to keep rock-bottom interest rates. Why? Well, Japan had long struggled with the threat of deflation, and the finance ministry still looks reluctant, so the gap is widening, making the yen weaker and weaker. No one knows exactly how long this will last, but for now, those living in Japan face price hikes as companies pass on higher production costs to consumers. Thousands of food items are roughly 16% more expensive than a year ago, according to Teikoku Data Bank, and traveling
You're still watching the big story here on One News. A Filipino baller is making waves on social media for posing like his idol, Utah Jazz star and Gilas guard Jordan Clarkson. I paid him a visit in his hometown to get to know him a little better. His story in my report. From the dreadlocks to the face, right down to the expression, on to the Slashers' basketball moves. You'd think this is Jordan Clarkson, NBA Sixth Man of the Year. Or should we say, 6 months of the year? This viral 23-year-old Pinoy baller from Taguig, Ferry Lucas, amused netizens after mimicking the Instagram post of the Utah Jazz star, capping off his latest Gilas Pilipinas stint. Even Jordan Clarkson himself went laughing. Oh, Jordan, kumusta?
Okay lang po.
Ano nga palayo mo, Jordan?
Clarkson daw po.
Ferry shared that it was his cousin Mark who came up with the idea to post like his idol. Just a little something to get their team to play better for the finals of their barangay league.
Sabi ko, Pet, ba't hindi ka magtali ng buhok para gayahin mo si Kasi idol mo naman yun, di ba? Tapos pagkatapos, sabi ko, Pet, halika nga dito, picturean nga natin. Tapos gayahin natin yung picture ni Clarkson.
Ferry had a spectacular game and brought home the championship for Team PU3. The Utah Jazz star recently visited the tenement in Taguig, but Ferry missed the opportunity to see his idol. Still, it's evident that the Filipino-American guard has made waves in this neighborhood, more so now that he's donning the Gilas Pilipinas jersey. Dito sa isang sulok sa barangay Napindan, gumagawa ng makeshift court si Ferry at ang kanyang mga teammates. Ang ginagawa nila, dito sa pako ng wall, sinasabit nila yung board ng ring. Yun nga lang, medyo nasira nga daw, kaya kailangan nilang palitan. Para sa mga kabataan dito, basketball ang nagbibigay buhay sa kanilang araw-araw. Ferry, who is unemployed after being laid off in his job at the City Hall, says his family wasn't really supportive of his passion for basketball at first. But he said basketball is the one thing that inspires him to live a better life despite his everyday challenges. Just like Jordan Clarkson, Ferry says he's willing to be Sixth Man of the Year for any kind of job that comes along, even if that means going back to cleaning street gutters and canals. Ferry also hopes that he can play a one-on-one match against the Gilas guard and dreams that the Utah Jazz star's rise to stardom will reflect in his own life once he gets the opportunity to get off the bench and make his own shots in the workplace. Gretchen Ho, we are One News. More stories after the break. Keep it here on One News.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. After Indonesia, President Bongbong Marcos is now in Singapore for a 2-day state visit.
First thing on the agenda, his meeting with the Filipino community in the city-state. Now, to give us the latest on this, we have Marlene Alcaide joining us live from Singapore. Marlene, what do you have for us?
Tito, Gretchen, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. started his second leg of state visit in Singapore by meeting overseas Filipino workers here. OFWs warmly welcomed President Marcos Jr., who arrived here at the National University of Singapore 6 in the evening. The president thanked them for their support. Singapore got the highest voter turnout for the overseas automated voting in the Asia Pacific during the last elections. That's why the president thanked the Filipinos working here in Singapore who voted for him. He promised to support not just the OFWs but also their families. The president said they are already planning to give scholarship programs, healthcare, and housing projects for the OFWs. Meanwhile, Migrant Workers Secretary Toots Ople also announced that Singapore will hire additional healthcare workers. Tomorrow, the president's schedule is more jam-packed with meetings. In the morning, he will attend a program for naming a new variety of orchid here in Singapore. Marcos Jr. Is also scheduled to pay a courtesy call on Singapore President Halima Yacob and other key officials, including deals on ensuring data protection and privacy and counterterrorism efforts are just some of what are going to expect to witness the signing of these several agreements that I mentioned. The two leaders are expected to witness the signing of these agreements. An economic briefing and roundtable meeting with the business community in Singapore will also be held on tomorrow. The president is hoping to get investment deals from businessmen here that can aid the Philippine economy as it recovers from the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. Gretchen, Sito.
Thank you very much, Marlene Alcaide, reporting live from Singapore.
A lot of things on the agenda. Di ba? Napasok ko yun. At dahil sabi mo gusto mo magwagpo, I just wanted to send you a welcome gift from the Big Story family. This is for you.
Thank you very much.
On your second day.
On my second day. Boy, this is great compensation.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, that's the Big Story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. I'm Cito Beltran.
The Big Story is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I'm Gretchen Ho. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.